In this update, we're going to break down the weather pattern over the next 7 to 10 days and take a look at some of the temperatures because we are expecting an Arctic blast to bring the coldest air of the season all the way down into Mexico, folks. And that could spark several disturbances that'll bring some snow, if not some heavier snows, even some snows all the way down into the deep south because the Arctic air reaches so far south. So let's take a look at the setup moving forward on the 500 millibar. You can actually see this little clipper system that is coming down from the Great Lakes. That actually spread some snow showers this morning into the afternoon. As we continue to move the needle, we'll watch a little bit of a warm-up that's going to be taking place, especially coming from the south. We'll have a little bit of reprieve from the south wind, southwest wind. So we are expecting a little bit of a warm-up, especially as we go into that Friday time frame. I think that's your overall warmest day, but then we'll be watching this other system coming out from the west. This is an area of low pressure that's going to be moving from west to east. That will link up with this first Arctic wave that's going to be diving down from Montana. That looks to cross into the plains and link up with this that initial first disturbance down there into the southern plains. And then by the time we head into Saturday this weekend, especially by Sunday, we'll have easily the coldest temperatures of the season dive into the Rockies all the way down into Texas, getting into the southern plains. So most of the area will be feeling the effects of the first initial Arctic blast. And then there's a secondary surge, especially on Monday, as we'll start to see more blocking over the top across Alaska in Greenland. That puts this polar lobe all the way down into the deep lower 48, and it promises to plunge all the way down into Mexico first. You know that's true Arctic air when you're talking freezing temperatures all the way down into Mexico, even some 20s by the time we head into Tuesday morning. So we are looking for significant systems going to be on the table, over the next 7 days. So let's break down the temperatures for you, because we are talking about a lot of cold air and we are getting into the coldest time of the season. And one of the things you look for, especially when you have the northern areas, especially Alaska, getting into over the top into Canada, whenever you're seeing them really warm, which they are going to be, that typically traps the colder air underneath. So you get these little cross polar flow events that we're seeing right now with these little clipper systems, and it's still bringing some pretty cold air. I mean, some of these temperatures are pretty significant. We'll go over the temperatures. These are your anomalies. These are how far above and below average you are. But look what happens Wednesday morning, folks. That is significant cold that's draped across Illinois, portions of Indiana, as well as Kentucky, into Ohio. And that's before the big Arctic blast is going to be on the table. But you can definitely see by Friday, there's the overall warmer conditions waiting for the wings of the Arctic air that likely will be building up there into the Yukon territory. So as we move the needle through Saturday, you can actually see the first initial stages of some of that Arctic air really starting to build across the Yukon territory, diving down into British Columbia, all the way through the Rockies down into Denver. And then eventually that'll link up into Kansas through the plains, into portions of Texas by the time we head into that Monday afternoon. And it really gets going this weekend, and there it is by Monday afternoon, folks. Much of the lower 48 will be well below average. So that first initial blast, I think it really takes the brunt of it. The central U.S. takes the brunt of it, and then it kind of shifts eastbound. So if you live in the central part of the U.S., those areas across Montana, through Wyoming, going into Colorado, the areas of Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, you're going to take the full brunt of this Arctic blast. And you can actually see by the time we head into that Tuesday afternoon, pretty much the entire state of Texas, all the way down into Mexico, is dark in that pink. That is your 30 below average temperatures. That is really significant. That gives you an idea of the true Arctic air that will likely be on the table on the way for heading into the next week. And that colder air just kind of shifts eastbound. And now by the time we head into Tuesday, you guys up there into Ohio, back into Kentucky, into West Virginia, you're into that Arctic air mass and bringing some of that coldest air, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere. So we could be looking at extended times of actually below freezing all the way down for the deep south with this true Arctic air that will likely unfold heading in the next week. So let's talk about actual temperatures. So let's zoom into the central US first. So this is where we stand right now this morning. We are already pretty cold, right? It's still cold up there across negative teens across much of the Dakotas. Through Minnesota, and then as we move the needle through tonight, you can actually see the overall low temperatures. I mean, you're talking single digits up here into Iowa, back into Missouri, as well as into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. A little bit lighter back into the 20s across Oklahoma and Arkansas. But as you continue to move through, you can start to see the temperatures kind of moderate as we hit Wednesday, Thursday, especially into Friday. Remember, Friday is going to be overall your warmest day as the surge comes from the south. So these temperatures moderate big time with 60s, 40s, 50s showing up, and then, you know, all the way back in the 20s, waiting for that initial surge of that Arctic air, and it will be starting to enter the lower 48 heading into that Saturday time frame and really buckle down going into Sunday morning. By the time we head into Sunday morning, every one of you guys in Colorado will actually be below zero, folks. We're looking at like 17 degrees below zero there in Denver. We've got single digits in Kansas, single digits in Oklahoma. We've got 19 degrees there in Dallas. It's going to be a cold time coming ahead, and that is just the signs of things to come, as we'll have another surge of Arctic air that trails behind that one. And by the time we head into Monday, we've got a lot of areas across the north below zero. Everywhere in green is below zero. Then single digits drop all the way down into Oklahoma now, all the way down into Texas, New Mexico, portions of Arizona. You get the idea, folks. When it's 16 degrees in Shreveport, you know it's cold, right? You got 20s, you know, hard freeze territory all the way down to the Gulf Coast. This is a serious cold spell that will likely be on the table, and it just gets going. By the time we head into Tuesday, yeah, we're still significantly cold, even as the air shifts a little bit further off to the east. And then as we move, you know, to those areas across the east, let's take a look at it. So remember, you first kind of get more of a slingshot, right? So here's the eastern areas of the United States. There's Wednesday when we get that first little clipper system with some snow on the ground still up there across Iowa, back into Missouri, through areas of the Ohio Valley, through Kentucky there, into West Virginia. You're definitely going to be in the cold side, single digits by the time we head into Wednesday morning. For tomorrow morning, those temperatures do likely try to moderate, if you will, slingshot back up with that south wind coming back in the picture. Remember, your warmest day is likely on Friday, but then the Arctic air comes across the central US. The east gets more of a glancing blow to begin with, but as we move through time and go through Monday there into Tuesday, yes, more of the east will be inundated with that Arctic air. So no one's going to get left out in the system. Much of the west, much of the central, and pretty much everywhere east. I mean, there's about 97% of the country is going to see freezing temperatures from this air mass, and you got the freeze line drifting all the way down into central Florida. This is some serious stuff. True Arctic air is definitely going to be on the way heading into next week. So let's break down the surface map. So there's your overall clipper system that what they're dealing with right now across the Great Lakes into portions of Ohio, back into Pennsylvania. Just a clipper system. We're not expecting too much snow to contend with, but that's Wednesday. There it is, Thursday, and then of course you get the warm up, right? You get a little bit of a warm up that's going to come with the first intrusion of the Arctic air. You'll have a little bit of a surge. So for those areas across maybe East Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, you'll get some stronger, maybe some heavier thunderstorms Friday night into Saturday, waiting in the anticipation of that first stronger push of Arctic air. And with that Arctic air, as a 1036 Arctic high pressure drops down into the Montana, that'll bring some snow with it and across Wyoming, through the Rockies. We're likely going to get a couple of inches there in Denver. And then by the time they get that system north enough, you'll have some snow showers ringing out across Ohio, back into Pennsylvania, and areas of upstate New York, getting into southern Canada. You'll have lighter snow amounts as you come through the Rockies, back through Kansas, as well as into Oklahoma. That's heading into Saturday and into Sunday. But then there's another system with that reinforcing shot of Arctic air coming down the pike on Monday. You'll likely have more snow there into Colorado, back into New Mexico, back into Kansas again, and entering portions of Texas by the time we get into Monday. And then it gets pretty interesting further south. We'll have another area. This is like deja vu. Remember the winter storm further south that they just dealt with? Kind of a similar type setup with an area of low pressure setting up across Mexico. And that looks to swing across Texas during the day on Monday. And with that lift, with Arctic air truly down in place all the way down to the deep south into Brownsville, folks. Yes, we're talking wintry precipitation probabilities increasing by the time we head into Monday night into Tuesday with icy mix and then potentially wintry precipitation into central U.S., North Texas, the Panhandle. Pretty much all of Texas could be locked in the wintry precipitation. And look how far south this gets, folks. That tells you true Arctic air is in place when you're looking at some freezing type rain conditions all the way down into Galveston, into Louisiana, back into Mobile. Yeah, this is a pretty significant Arctic blast. It's going to be on the table and could set up a significant winter storm heading into Monday, Tuesday, and going into Wednesday of next week. And that could traverse up the eastern seaboard with a pretty heavy snow threat back into Virginia, West Virginia, through Pennsylvania, as well as into Delaware, and as well as into New Jersey. So it kind of gives you an idea. And here's the overall GFS. So let's break this thing down for you. That was the European. This is the overall GFS. There's the Clipper system coming in right now for Wednesday and Thursday across the Ohio Valley. And then we'll kind of moderate, right? And then we'll look for that other system that's coming in. You'll have more precipitation with ahead of that cold front. You'll have more snow through the Rockies, and that'll dive down and then link up with the secondary system down there in Texas. So you got both global guidances right now hinting at that second disturbance could be pretty significant for those areas across the south and spread wintry precipitation for the southern plains, getting into the southeast and heading all the way down into the deep south, folks. The Florida Panhandle, yeah, kind of unheard of, could be in even the probabilities of wintry mix down there in southeastern portions of Georgia, through the Carolinas, up North Carolina, and then up the eastern seaboard. Kind of gives you an idea of what we're working with. Of course, we'll fine tune this as we get a little bit closer, but here is the overall snow probabilities of where you particularly can get snow. Notice the dry slot. You will have a little Clipper system that comes through, so your probabilities are much higher if you live east of this corridor. And then you'll get the surge of the Arctic air that comes down to the Rockies, and then you'll have a secondary system that forms on Monday, bringing that southern threat. So you got pretty high probabilities, even right now, 40, 50, almost 60% of wintry precipitation all the way down in the deep south for Louisiana, Mississippi, into Alabama, back into Georgia, through the Carolinas. And the overall GFS ensembles is kind of implying the same way, folks. Notice the dry slot. You will have a dry slot, unfortunately, for those areas in Iowa, back into Minnesota, that you are looking for some snow. You're probably going to miss out on these systems over the next 7 days. But you get the idea, folks. We got a lot of Arctic air that's going to be on the table, and 2 big snowstorms that could be on the table between now and by the time we head into next Thursday. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button and catch the next update while I protect you before and after the storm.